I do want to talk about some disruption happening right here in our own town around education. And so Jack Harris, if you could come on up here to the studio. Welcome, Jack. So Jack, you know, normally I introduce you as President and CEO of Junior Achievement of Georgia, which I guess I still do technically. Right. Yep. But you have a new title now, President and CEO of 3DE Schools. So I think the best way to start out is, did you leave JA, or what's the rumors? So what is 3DE?
So 3DE is, we've been incubating this startup within the Junior Achievement umbrella over the last 3 years. Some of you might know it as JA Academy. We've rebranded that as 3DE, and the entire purpose of that is to work in a joint venture with the business community, school districts, and Junior Achievement to actually transform high school education to create better economic opportunity for all students. And it's a departure from a lot of the work that JA had done in the past, but comes off the same platform. So we're spinning that out as a separate organization to manage that expansion and launch nationally from a centralized direction.
And it used to be, some people would know this as JA Academy, and, and the launch school was Banneker High School. Right. And here in Atlanta, right now, is that 3DE now? Where is that?
3DE, we have 6 schools across Metro Atlanta, 4 different school districts, Fulton, APS, Gwinnett, and Cobb. Yeah. And for Atlanta, the goal is to expand that from 6 schools to over 20 schools in the next 5 years.
Yeah. So if someone said, you know, because obviously there's a lot going on in education reform, whether it's charter schools or whatever it could be, and if you're to say what's different about 3DE from anything else going on, what would it be?
Yeah, the key, there's what's different from a structure perspective and what's different from a learning perspective. Yeah. So from a structure perspective, a lot of the innovation in education has happened outside the school district over the past 15, 20 years, if you think of charters and others. Yeah. When we know that over 90% of all students are still educated in a traditional public high school, and that traditional public high school education still looks the way it did 40 to 50 years ago. Right. So from a structure perspective, it's a joint venture that we create schools within existing traditional public high schools with the goal to bring that innovation and work it from the inside out to transform the entire learning experience. And then from a learning perspective, it's all based off case methodology. It brings real-world connectivity across math, science, English, and history, all of those courses, to really re-engineer education in a way that's going to be a whole lot more relevant, more experiential, and more authentically connected to real-world complexities.
And you've had some very tangible results, you know, with the early schools. Correct?
We have, yeah. So our first school was Banneker High School in partnership with Fulton County Schools. Banneker sits south of the airport. And at the time, it was the lowest performing high school in Fulton County, 42% graduation rate, 56% transiency rate. And we've been there for 3 years. We've got our first graduating class will be coming this year, class of 2019. Anticipate that our graduation rates will be over 40 points higher than when we first went in. Transient rates have dropped by 90%. It's transforming not just the lives for those individual students, but that entire school community. Right.
So you obviously created an entire structure and organization called 3DE. So what's the big picture here? Yeah, because there's a reason why you split this off.
Yeah, big picture. Yeah. We kind of lucked into this opportunity in some ways with a superintendent that we knew well at the time who, through a course of conversations, basically admitted it to a root systemic issue, that the current education system as we do it in our country right now is not living up to and not meeting the demands of the economy. And so when you look at issues around lack of income mobility or income inequality or talent pipeline gaps, whatever that is, it all goes back rooted into the fact that the education system right now just hasn't kept up pace with the change in the economy. Right. And as the system, they haven't had the ability to make that leap that's needed. Right. And so if that's the systemic issue, then our goal is systemic change. Right. And so we want to take this model to 2,500 high schools across the country. That would represent 10% of all high schools in the country, 1.5 million students, and use that as a tipping point to really change the entire dynamic of how we think about education in the U.S.
That's very, very good. So Jack, what's if we start thinking your journey has started, but it's really kind of just starting again. So what's probably the biggest next step for you right now?
The biggest learning is that we are truly in a startup, and so
that's true.
We've had the benefit of being able to incubate the startup within a larger organization. But as we think about building for scale and building for fidelity and consistency and quality, it requires us really thinking through what does that mean, and making sure that we've got the right talent in place, the right capacity in place, and One thing I would say, and I've said this publicly too, Atlanta has been such an incredible city to launch something like this.
Right.
When you think about the broader business community, the dynamism that is here, the engagement, the desire to be involved in education, and frankly, the school districts here have been fantastic partners in really thinking about innovation in a different way. Absolutely.
Well, Jack, I mean, I think I love that, you know, the now 3DE is associated with Disruptor Studio. I think it's really a disruptor in education in a very positive sense. I mean, you've been truly an innovator and disruptor, what you've done with JA here in Atlanta, and now it's going to be with 3DE, you know, across the country. So I'm looking forward to continue having these chats and seeing how 3DE is going through the Disruptor Studio.
Yeah.
So thanks and congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.